Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this image of the Joker character with the words "Why so serious" on 12mm plywood. Just nice plywood. I do find plywood does route out really nice, obviously depending where you get it from and the quality of your plywood. As always for me, we've printed our image on, and I literally just put it in place, stick it down with a bit of painter's tape there and good old carbon paper underneath, and literally just trace around it. I find this all part of the project, and it's the relaxing bit. We can do it indoors where it's nice and warm and just take our time. I prefer to go around with a biro or a pen, but a pencil will do the job just as easy. Once we've gone all the way around, we can simply remove that, and there's our image all nicely ready to route out. Now it looks a mess at the moment. I tend to mark off the areas we're going to remove, or shade them in, or shade in the areas you want to leave or remove, whichever you prefer, but you're definitely better off going around and marking it, because you'll go away, come back, and we might just start removing the nose section there, whereas we want to leave that and we route out all around it. You'll see as we go along. Plus that way we can use that image over and over again. This would make a nice scroll saw pattern if routing is not your thing. You can literally cut all this out on a scroll saw and stick it to another backer once you've painted out the separate colours. But today we are going to route it out. Now for routing purposes, as always with me, I always start off with these little, we call them CNC bits. I think they are CPB carbon something, but CNC bits. I will put links in the description for these and all the other little bits we're going to use today. Now they have a small shaft on them, a 3.175mm. Now that will fit a Dremel if you have the router attachment. If you're going to use a 1/4 inch router, you will need what they call a reducer, an adapter reducer collet, a 6.35mm. Basically just a tube with some splits in it, and you slot your little CNC bit in there. That has now got the 1/4 inch or 6.35mm shaft on it, and that will fit your router no problem. Some routers have 1/2 inch shafts, obviously you would need the bigger adapter. Now we will use this to do all our line work. Now when you do your line work, I never route out 99% on the line. It's either up to the line if we're doing outset, which is this one, or if we're going to remove the nose area, up to the line on the inset, on the inside of the piece. If you were going to route out on the line itself, which would make sense when you come to smaller sections, like this little bit here, if I can really get right in. If you're going to route out on the line there and on the line there, you will lose that middle section completely. So you have to really try to route up there, just sneak in there, and then come round, and so on. We'll see. And projects like this, it doesn't matter if we're slightly off the line too much, we can come in with our little Dremel afterwards when we come to clean it out, and we can nibble away at that and get it somewhere near. Now there is only one section on this piece here which I'm not too sure about yet, is the section underneath of the lip there. I've just noticed again, I'm not too sure about this little section, so when we come to finish it we might take that off completely and just have the two eyes, the nose and the mouth. So be aware, if that disappears, we haven't took it off by mistake. I've actually removed it because to me it's not really serving a lot of purpose. I just think I'd be better with that gone completely, but we'll see. We can change our mind. It's our project and we can do as we please for sure. So remember, we're going to do all the lines with that. Also on this one, it's going to have a frame on it. Now you can put your separate frame on. I have some frames that are already made up, but for me I'm just going to route out a frame so it's just all in one piece. So a nice straight line there. Once we've removed all this background, these sections will be painted appropriate colours, and the backer we're just going to pour some resin in there, white coloured resin, and just flood the old piece itself, and hopefully those eyes, the mouth and the lettering should pop out nicely. Once we have done all the lines, for clearing out purposes, I like to use these little end milling bits. These are all eBay or Amazon. These are fantastic for clearing out. They have the same size shaft on them as your CNC bits, So it will be a simple case of removing that. We pop that in. I find them hard to come with those little coloured things on now. They're just separate bits, should I say, but they are the same if you can't find them with those multicoloured barriers on. And we'll set it to the same depth and use this to clear out all the remaining area. We will need a small piece because obviously we've got to get into these, in between these smaller sections and inside there like so. So that's not probably the right one to pick. So we'll pop that in for the clear out. If it's a little bit slow, and on previous projects, remember there is bigger bits out there. I like to use these straight flush bits. They work fantastic. They will clear that out in seconds. But once you start getting near these delicate areas, they will pop that plywood off, no problem. And they come in various sizes. You could certainly not use a big chunky thing like that. That will just clear the thing in seconds, taking most of your project with it. Remember, there is better bits out there. Not that I've tried them. There's profile bits, liner bits. Some people like to use spiral up cuts and all the rest of it. But for me, little projects like this, and if you're just starting off, you want to pack a CNC bits, packet end milling bits, your little adapter collet, a little router, and you're good to go. Okay, let's pop the CNC bit. This is a nice new one. This is a 15 degree, which is basically just the end of that angle there. Because we are putting resin in, doesn't matter about too much of an angle on it. If I can find my adapter bit. So we'll pop that in there. We'll set it to, I think 3mm is plenty deep enough for resin. And that is literally the same thickness as your bit itself. 3.175. We'll call it 3mm. So we'll set it to that with the router. There is depth gauges out there you can purchase, but we set our router on there, set our CNC bit to that depth, and that will be ideal for routing this one out. Okay, let's start doing this one. Right, so we've made it all the way round with the CNC bits. You can see how lettering's nicely done out. You will notice on some of these I actually went around twice. That's not for the cutting, just basically I have a little blower on my router, and to clear the dust out I just skim it round again and it blows out. If I can just show you that quickly, with a foot pedal on the floor which is attached to a compressor, and I have a little tube there. I don't know if you can just see that. A little tube which flies underneath it, and when I press my foot pedal, that just nicely blows all the dust away. That's just something I've incorporated myself, and the piping runs down the back there. But it's ideal. In a perfect world, your router would be attached to a vacuum extractor, whatever the sucker thing, whatever they want to call it, and it'll take it all away and make it into a nice block, and a plank comes out the other side. But for me, we make do with what you've got. So I tend to just go around again with my little compressor and it blows it all out. You can see from there. Remember that bit under the chin? I've cut round it, but that might disappear yet. We'll see how it goes once we clear out the rest of it. Just before that, we want to do our frame section. Just 4 straight lines. Now personally myself, I'll just do this freehand, and it's not showing off or trying to be clever. I'm just not too bothered if they're not perfectly straight. It doesn't matter to me. But if you're new to the router and you want a straighter line, a couple of options. If you are doing it freehand, put another board along the side like so. So it makes it nice and level. That way, when you're coming with your router, you just got more of an area to run on. If that wasn't there and that's on the end like so, you might just find yourself pivoting and messing about. So a nice piece of the same wood just gives you a nice area to work with. If you do want the perfect straight line, with my router, the old Black & Decker DN66, it actually comes with what they call a micro adjuster. Now that will slot onto my router. I won't put it on because it slots into those holes there, ends up sliding onto there. So if you imagine that was still sat on top, and then you will put that on there and adjust these, and then just move that along your wood like so. And that should hopefully give you a perfect straight line with your router bit set on there. I've tried it once or twice, it's just not for me. Another option is a nice straight edge as a guide. You have to come to the end of the table for this one. So you literally put your guide there, let's say. Put your router bit into one corner, move your wood up to where you want it. Same in the opposite corner. I'm not quite doing this right. And then roughly you could put clamps on. I'm doing this very quickly just to show you guys. So you could clamp your straight edge on somewhere like so. We've marked off that centre for that and that. So you can put your router on there and just slide it across like that, using that piece of wood as your guide. And obviously you would take that off, spin that round, and you could do exactly the same with that. Clamp it down, work out your distance, and then just do the same and use that piece of wood as a guide. But for me, we'll just do it freehand. So I'll do that quickly. We'll make the frame, and then we can change our bit, and then we'll be on for cleaning out. Right, so we've done our frame, just 4 straight lines. It was certainly easier going across the grain like so, with the top and the bottom, than the actual long sections here. But remember, if it's not too perfect, we're going to get sandpaper and a little engraving bit on a Dremel and go inside and tidy all these up afterwards. But we've got a little frame going, and basically that's just going to be a dam we've made to stop the resin. Once we fill this back section with resin, obviously it'll stop it running over the edge, and hopefully it will stand out nice against the white resin with a nice black or dark stained frame. If this is not your way of doing things, you could just build your own frame around it, or have one that's already purchased and you're going to recycle. So there's all our lines done. As I say, you notice as I go along, I just remove the odd section. That's like a little depth gauge for me. So when we come to remove the CNC bit, you will get a lot more projects out of that for sure. And we're going to pop in one of these end milling bits. I'm going to go for a little, quite a small green one on the end here. They have the same size shaft, so you just slot them in there, pop it in the router, and then we'll set it to that depth there. This smaller one will just allow us to get into these smaller sections. And as it's clearing out nicely, we may pop a bigger one on. But I do find, once you get in the zone, you can certainly start clearing it out quite easy. Okay, so we'll pop this back on the router, set it to that depth, and basically start removing all the remaining shaded areas. Right, we've made it all the way round with those little end milling bits. At the end, I just kept one of the small ones on and I did the full piece. So there's no need to put any other bits on there for those. As you can see from that, it's cleared out everything nicely. I lost a little tip off there, and that wasn't through the routing out or the clearing out. I actually went through it with a bit of sandpaper and it just broke it off, but we've managed to save it there, so we've no loss. And those eagle-eyed among you, I went for it and removed the bit under the lip there. Remember in our previous template we had a section there? Well, I've removed that now. I just wasn't comfortable with that bit, so that's gone. And you can do that as you go along. It's your project. Alter things as you suit. So far so good. We've got the frame going all the way around. That's going to make a nice dam. Stop any of that resin running away, and hopefully it'll stand out nicely against the white resin on the inside. Just before we go on to the painting or staining side of things, we're literally just going to give it a general tidy up. I like to use these cheap engraving bits. Just put in Dremel engraving bits on eBay and you get a pack of 30 of those for next to nothing, and they're all different shapes and sizes. And I'll literally just get one with a nice flat bottom on the end of a flexi cable, non-Dremel again, just eBay specials. These work fantastic, and for the price I've got no issue. And I'll use this just to general go around, get rid of all those little bits, just these little bits here we can't get in, little fluffy bits. We don't have to focus too much on the background, remember, we're going to cover all that. And a good bit of sandpaper. Normally I would come in with a mouse sander, but as we've already lost a little section there, I do have concerns about these breaking off as well, so we're going to be a little bit delicate on this one. So general tidy up, excuse me, and then we'll come back and look into the painting side of things. Right, that's all the general tidying up done. We went in with that Dremel bit there, the engraving bit, just get inside those letters there. Look, we can just see they're all nice and clear now. We've got no problem. And we also, a bit of sandpaper, just remove that pencil line. But didn't have to too much, to be honest. Remember, this all going to be painted black and just red on the lips. Now for painting wise, I do have spray paints. I went out and purchased some black spray yesterday. Some nice new stuff there, and you can spray that all just as easy. But on this one, I'm just going to use up these bits of paints I've got left. So it's a nice painter's black. We're going to use that for the eyes and all the lettering, and we might even have the frame done yet. And just some nice painter's touch red for the lips themselves. And if I decide to change my mind on the framework, we'll just go some nice dark teak, and then we'll come back and spray the full piece with a bit of varnish just to finish it off. And then we're ready just to pop in that resin. And once that resin goes in, this hopefully will just pop out really. Right, so we put our paint on and we put our stain on the frame in the end. Now the reason why I've painted the back completely is on previous projects, if I'd stained it or painted it and we had the slight overlay, should we say, when I put my resin on top, if your resin is not thick enough in colour wise, should I say, if that makes sense, I could actually see the stain showing through the resin. It was slightly transparent more than I wanted to. So now basically I've just painted the full back piece. Takes a couple of minutes. That way also the paint will help with sealing the plywood, so you won't get as many bubbles hopefully coming through when you put our resin in. And also we're going to spray varnish. Now the reason I put the varnish on, it's still nice and shiny, look. I just like, for me it just finishes the project off, and also it just gives it a nice shine, and it will darken the framework down. And I've just popped a bit of stain on the back as well. So it will be a simple case of just spraying this 2 or 3 times. I'll go outside once I've done this first one, and then all we have left to do is put our resin in, mixed with white acrylic paint, and this little project will be finished because we've already got our varnish on already. Just 151 clear lacquer today. It could be yacht varnish, rust-alone, is it varnish? Doesn't really matter. So straight on like that, no messing about. Remember, this is going to seal as well as just give us a nice shine. Okay, we'll come back when this is all done, not forgetting to do a little bit of sidewalls as well. Right, so we sprayed our bit of varnish on there. Start to see indoors, but that's got a lovely shine to it. So now it's just going to be a simple case of filling all the back in with resin, white resin with white acrylic paint, should I say, and hopefully it'll all stand out a lot better than what it looks like at this moment in time. So the resin for today is going to be Vista 1. Your resin is 2 parts. You get A, your resin, and B, your hardener, and you basically mix the 2 together. Just watch your resins. This is what they call a 1-to-1 mixed by volume. So whatever the amount of A, you just need exactly the same amount of B. And I simply use these little party containers, cups. They're ideal because they've got little grooves up the side. And I'll just mark A for my resin, and I'm going to go up 5 grooves. Pure guesswork on something like this. And then B for the hardener, and obviously we go up 5 of those again. So we will literally just mix the same of each amount, and then I transfer B into A because it's slightly runnier. They do recommend putting A and B into a 3rd container. Personally myself, it's something I've never done, and I've never had any issues. I'll mix the resin off camera. Once we've done that, we'll simply add a bit of white acrylic paint. Just make it nice and bright, should we say, bright and white. Now for mixing wise, I just use these party knife, forks or spoons. They're ideal. They have a nice little groove at the back. You can mix that, scoop it out, and if you just feed it to where you want it. If that's not your thing, I've tried these little pipettes in the past. It is possible to suck the resin up. You cut a little section off the end there, and you can squeeze that into where you want it. Or I have known people to use syringes. There again, it just seems too messy and won't work for me, but you could suck up your resin and squeeze that into place like that. So it's entirely up to you guys. I prefer to do it. Right, I'll mix this resin off camera, come back, add our white, and basically start filling this one in. Okay, so we've mixed our bit of resin up. Just remember, when you're using resin, you want some nice gloves on. Please don't follow my example. Plenty of ventilation and a proper resin mask. It's quite toxic, and it can be dangerous and nasty should you get it on your skin and stuff like that. So you have been warned. Personally myself, I've never had any issues, but that's just me being be me. Okay, so a bit of acrylic paint. They do say 10% of whatever you use for the mixture. Personally myself, I'll just get a nice dollop in there. Give it a good mixing round. Remember, we've got a nice black background, so if it's not overly thick, it's going to look thicker because we've got the darker background, if that makes sense to you. So give it a mix round, and you can try a little bit out. Remember, we're going to fill it all in. We've got our little cocktail sticks just to help it into these tighter sections. And hopefully as this resin goes in, it should all start looking nice. We'll drop a bit on here just to see what it looks like. If it's white enough. No, that's not too bad. I'm just going to pop a little bit in, a little bit more to say we've had, give it a go. And then we can basically just start filling this one in. Plop, there you go, the last bit. Right, good mix round. And I'll start filling it in. Right, there's all our white resin in now. The only problem was I didn't mix enough first time around, so when I mixed this second batch, it was actually whiter than the first batch. So then I had to pour it on and then quickly mix it all in and go around quite fast like that. So we're trying to blend it all in at the same time. But I think we've got it, we're somewhere near. We've filled in the eyes and stuff like that. So as we go along, get a lighter. You can just see there, I can just show you some little bubbles in this corner here. And as you get your lighter on top, try and do it first, one that works, and go over the top, and you'll see there, that just pops those little bubbles, and they'll all disappear. And we'll just skim over the full piece like that, the big guns. And that's it. All them bubbles are all more or less gone there. You can just see from there, we've got a nice shine going. Right, we'll put this to one side. I'll come back in 5 minutes and just go another little skim over with the lighter, just in case these smaller sections like so. Okay, that's it. Get a nice cover it up with any flies, dust or anything, they will find it. So we'll cover it up like that on a couple of little plastic things for it to stand on. And then we'll come back in 24 hours and this little project should be finished. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's roughly about 24 hours later. Personally myself, I'll just leave this for another day or two. In some resin groups, I mean, manufacturers recommend at least 30 days to fully cure. I'll be quite happy to hang that up tomorrow, to be honest. And that's it. This little project is finished. That white's gone fine. We've had no issues with that. Managed to mix those two different types of white in together. Like I said previously, I had to mix up a second batch, and it was a little bit more white than the first batch. But we got away with it. We mixed it all in fine. We had no problems. There's the odd little speckle, I'm sure. If I look really close, I'm sure I can find something if you really want to be picky. But for me personally, that came out fine. And I am loving those eyes. Them eyes are proper looking at you. Aye? Okay. Right, so there we have it then. So it's the Joker. Why so serious? We routed it out on 12mm plywood using our CNC bits to do all our lines with, and then we came in with the end milling bits. In the end I just kept the one end milling bit on and just did the full bit, and once you get in the zone it soon clears things out. And then we came in with the paint is touch black. In the end I just painted the full piece. This allows, if your resin is not quite thick enough, you won't see the overflow of the black showing through, so I just do the full piece That way it also seals it up slightly. And we had a little bit of red there for the lips. And for the framework itself, just a nice wood dye dark stain. And then we sprayed a bit of varnish over the top. I'll just find the varnish we used. 151. It doesn't matter on the day. I'll just use whatever's kicking about. And then for the final resin inlay, the full white section, Vista one's my favourite at this moment in time. And for the acrylic paints, Crawford and Black. I've used those from day one and I won't change that, but I've certainly got no issues with those. And that's it. This little project is finished, and it measures in at 13 inches by 9.5 inches across. The Joker, routed out on 12mm plywood, inlaid with a resin. Thank you very much for watching.